All right, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 12 of the Big Shred podcast. I am John Matos, and we are 12 episodes in this bitch. So it's been a lot of fun. I don't know if I expected it to get to episode 12, but we got a great show for you today. So I've got my good friends Johnny Crowder and Riley McShane. It's a little vocalist episode, if you will. So if you happen to be a vocalist or have ever wanted to or kind of aspiring, this is definitely your episode to get into the chat, ask some questions of these guys. They are very seasoned, very good at what they do, and I'm excited to get to chat with them both. Johnny and I go way back, so probably about 10 years now. And Riley and I are actually kind of just becoming familiar, so it's gonna be a fun one for sure. So episode 12 is sponsored by Ormsby Guitars. So if you are in quarantine and it has you on the search for the guitar of your dreams, look no further than Australia's own Ormsby Guitars. Ormsby Guitars has artists like myself, Rusty Cooley, Dino Cazares, Sanjay Kumar, ton of amazing players, some really great guitars. Got 6 string, 7 string, and 8 strings, standard scales, multi scales, modern and more exotic shapes, your kind of standard kind of shapes for guitars as well. So definitely visit their Reverb. They've got a ton of great guitars on Reverb available right now. You can pre-order some really sick guitars along with signature models from Rusty and Dino on their website, ormsbyguitars.com. So again, if you're looking for the guitar of your dreams, don't hesitate. Head over to Ormsby Guitars today. Now, the previous episodes of the Big Shred podcast, those are up currently on YouTube. So episode 1 through 10 right now is up on our YouTube channel. Going to be uploading the previous episodes as well to Spotify and all the other places where you can enjoy the audio form of podcasts very soon. So we're working on getting those edited and basically finished up. But definitely give us a follow at our socials. So, on our Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, the YouTube, again, if you want to rewatch these in the video format, would really appreciate the follow and basically helping us continue to build the Shred family. So, the next podcast is going to be this Saturday. We'll have a Saturday episode. Really looking forward to it. It's going to be a episode full of Shred with my friend Dan Sugarman, who's got a solo album being released. We'll be hanging out with him, and also Dave Davidson of Revocation. So super excited to talk to both of those guys, and hopefully we can get both of them doing a little bit of shredding for us. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on today's first guest, my good buddy Johnny Crowder. Johnny, you may be on mute, just a heads up.
I was. Also, you have the dude from Revocation. I'm a big, unashamed fan of Revocation.
Dude, me too, man. So yeah, I know you're a busy guy, but if you're hanging on Saturday 7, come hang out, and yeah, he's awesome. He actually, I live up in Massachusetts now, and he's from Boston, and I've run into him a few times at shows. He's a great guy.
Man, I remember specifically we played a routing show. I can't remember. Maybe it was on the way to the Cattle Decap tour, but we played the Dirty Dog in Austin, Texas,
Oh,
and Revocation was with Death Angel. That's who it
oh
was.
man.
And it was such a staggering display of like luck. The fact that we just happened to be driving through Austin and get on that, because most routing shows are trash,
Yeah.
and we lucked out with that.
That's so awesome. I think we might have played with them too on the or so we played the Metal Fest pre-party. We were just talking about it. You guys played Metal Fest though, right? Oh,
Yes.
that's where it was. So we played the pre-party with them, which
Big.
was my first time like seeing them live and stuff. And yeah, they're a phenomenal band, dude. Just like
Nice.
the musicianship and they just look like they're having so much fun all the time
Yep.
with how intricate their songs are too. It's like I don't know how, and he's doing vocals at the same time. It's like what the hell is going on? um, But yeah, dude. So thank you so much for coming on. I know, like I mentioned before, you've got a ton going on, even with the pandemic quarantine stuff going on, if you will. So how's that been treating you? I know you're in the wild east, I guess we'll call it, the Florida land. How's that been working out for you?
And Florida is insane. It's just as insane as it was when you left. So
Yeah.
don't think that when you left, Florida got it together. And honestly, it's been weird because I'm high risk. So I
Really?
have not left. I mean, I've gone on bike rides, I've gone on runs, but I haven't like been in a store or
Uh,
like, you know what I mean? I haven't
yeah.
been around other humans close enough to hear them in a really long time, and it's
Oh man.
definitely been weird. The only thing that I have been able to do is I went to the studio to track a little bit with Austin Coop, our guitarist,
Nice.
and that was like my first. I didn't hug him or touch him or anything, but
Yeah.
I wanted to just give him a great big hug and be like, humans.
Well, it's cool that we get to do this then, where we can kind of see each other a little bit, sort of, and kind of have that interaction. I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum. Really, I'm an essential worker, I guess. So,
So,
yeah, I manage a medical marijuana dispensary up here in Mass, and yeah, it's been crazy just seeing the reactions from people like yourself who are immunocompromised and really just trying to get in and out and navigate through all this. I think Massachusetts is having a pretty decent response to all this, where we're not like we've seen like the standard kind of protest, but we're not like on the courthouse steps doing push-ups, which is like the last thing I saw out of Florida.
my sister showed me that this morning, and Chelsea Handler or someone like, oh, I can't remember who it was. Someone shared the video of it and said, thus proving that you can do push-ups and squats anywhere and you don't
Right,
need a
right.
lift. Like, wow.
It's like if that's not one of the most Florida things I've seen in recent days.
I miss the gym so much though, dude. Like
I do
that
too,
was
man.
the only things that I did that was outside of like my normal work and music routine was
Yeah.
getting out and being around other people at the gym. So like now all I have is I have those adjustable weights so you can either make them 20 pounds as high as you can go on two,
Uh,
or on a single you can do 30 pounds, but then you can't use the other one because of the plate. So
oh
it's like
man.
trying to get real creative to lift now.
Yeah, I've got the same thing, and I had just maybe gotten to like a regular routine like 3 months before this all started. So I was like just feeling good. I was like, getting into like where I want to put on some weight and stuff, and then
Mhm.
it like didn't work out. So I've been doing the same thing. It's basically the same where I've got the two dumbbells that'll go to 20 pounds, and then same thing. If I want to go heavier, I can go on one dumbbell, but it's really
Yeah.
really all I can do. So been sure similarly to you, getting creative and really just like I don't know, doing where I can, trying to stay motivated because it's hard when you're not in your regular routine or like how much can you really do, and then you get discouraged like is this doing anything, should I even bother?
That is the thought that I've had recently. Like, because when I go to the gym, I purposely try to lift extremely heavy and do super creative exercises and always surprise my body. And then
Yep.
I feel like you can only do so much body weight because I've been in like shelter in place or lockdown or whatever for like 65 days.
Wow.
So you can only do so much body weight before you're like, I don't know, do I feel like going on another run? Is running even doing anything at this point?
Right.
How much good can I do with 20-pound weights? You
Right.
know?
But I mean, I think even just keeping a little bit of a regular routine on exercise, especially like, and we'll get into it a little bit as well, but from a mental health perspective, is it's paramount, right? And like
Right.
keeping that dopamine and that stuff kind of still going, getting it where you can. Cool, man. So we go back. I want to say I have trouble pinpointing exactly the year, but it certainly was before both of our bands got signed. Because for
Mhm.
for folks that aren't aware, again, I'm from Florida. Johnny's obviously from Florida. He was previously in the band Dark Sermon, previously known as in reference to a sinking ship, and we basically came up together as metal bands from Florida. So we got signed around the same time. We started kind of touring full time around the same time. We did one of our first like bigger tours together. It was King Conquer headlining us, 40 Winners, and you guys. And yeah, I was just today, thinking about those shows and moments that stuck out to me from that. Do you recall? Do you have any memories from that tour?
I have one specific memory of playing somewhere on the East Coast of Florida, maybe Melbourne or something on Valentine's Day. And I remember it for two reasons. Number one, my girlfriend sent me flowers to the venue. My
Ah,
girlfriend at the time, and it blew my mind because I didn't even know she knew where we were going to be.
yeah.
Um, and then second of all, I remember some kid leaking so much out of his nose
Oh,
because he
yep.
got blocked. And I remember being really scared because the dude bled so much that I'm like, is he gonna actually die from like?
Oh no.
So those are the two things that I vividly remember from that tour, and they're both from the same show.
Yeah. So the memory I have, I've got one pretty vivid show memory where we played. It was like a rec center kind of. And I don't know if this is the same show or not. I feel like this
It
was
is.
also in Florida. Was it okay? Where we played like on that stage that was like kind of boxed in, like walls on either side.
Mhm.
So I remember that show, and then I don't remember where we were, but I do remember us like we found some place to stay at this like dorm, like at a college dorm or something, and we we parked our vans next to each other in the parking lot of the dorm, and all I remember is that someone took a shit in between our two vans. And I to this day I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was somebody in my band. I don't know if it was somebody. I don't know if it was just like a drunk college kid or something. But for sure there was a shit in between our two vans, and that's like the vivid memory that I have from us hanging out at that dorm.
I hope to God it wasn't anyone in my band.
I was saying this. I don't know. I'm just gonna be that guy, and like I want to say it was probably someone from my band, but who knows?
That's unreal. I can't block that out. That's crazy. That seems
Yeah.
pretty horrible.
Yeah. So your band, so Dark Sermon, started off as in reference to a sinking ship. So how did the name change go about? And then if you want to talk a little bit about, your run with them and how that ended.
Yeah. So, in reference to a sinking ship was the name of the band when I joined it. And the first thing I said was like, can we change this? How soon can we change the name? And they were like, no, I mean, we're all, it's already our name. And I'm like, we haven't even played any shows yet. Like, we could change it right now.
Yeah.
But they had already decided it. And it's actually the name of the Norma Jean song, which is
Yeah,
like
yeah,
where.
that's right.
And our earlier music was a little more like, is very funny considering where Dark Sermon ended up. But we started out as like sort of a southerny metalcore, like August Burns Red kind of Plea for Purging kind of vibes a little
Yeah.
bit, maybe. Um, and then it just changed so much, and our sound wound up drastically changing, but we were gaining momentum,
Yep.
and I was still pushing for a name change. And I don't think anyone in the band at that point was super happy with the band name,
Yeah.
but the band member who named the band quit. And we were like, oh, well, now we do it without hurting anybody's feelings.
Right.
And I remember specifically, we got an email from, I'm going to not say what label just because I don't know if there's any rules about that because it was a decade ago and probably
Sure.
nobody cares. But it was a label that I wanted to be signed to for a super long time. And they sent us an email and they were like expressing interest in the band. And they were like, but the name has got to go. Like, you guys got
Yeah.
to change. So we figured that maybe the ceiling that we were hitting was related to having a really clunky name. So
Right.
we changed the band name. We put out a music video, and within a couple weeks we were on the phone with labels. And I was like, how come nobody told us for the last 2.5 years that if we changed our band name that we'd have a chance? Because we felt like we were gaining momentum, but we
Yeah.
couldn't garner interest from labels. And then once we made that change, it was like what everybody was waiting for.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I feel like I remember having a conversation about it with like Neil or Austin on that tour we did with King Conquer, and how you guys were talking about it. And then I think it was maybe Ray who was like, "Yeah, you guys should fucking change that shit." But yeah,
Right.
I'm not. I don't know. I think, and I saw Ray. I saw Ray in here somewhere actually. So I wonder if he's still hanging out. What's going on, Ray?
Oh, is Ray
Um,
watching?
he was. I don't know if he still is, but I did see
Oh,
him. I did see him pop in for a minute.
I
Um,
I am fascinated with his food photos that he posts every day. Like I'm so jealous of where that guy gets to eat. I don't know
yeah.
where he eats, but it makes me want to move to South Florida and follow him around and eat his leftovers.
I can't even because I miss the Florida food so much. Like I miss that's if there's one thing I miss from back home, it's the food. I can't find any good Cuban food up here. So if you're in Massachusetts and you got the hookup, aside from my wife, obviously, let me know. Um, so then what happened towards the end of Dark Sermon? Because like I mentioned, I've caught up a little bit with you over the years, like online, and I tried to same thing. I tried to catch up with like Bryson and Austin and Neil and those guys, but never really got into what happened. So
Yeah, so it was really weird because we had a few things happen to the band that really they were hits to our momentum.
yeah,
So like we were growing, I think fairly quickly at first, and then we were slated to do a tour with Sepultura. It was Sepultura. Let me see if I can remember. This was like 2013 or something. This was a while ago.
yeah,
So Sepultura, Ancients, Scar the Martyr,
wow,
Unearth, and Scar the Martyr is freaking Joey Jordison from Slipknot.
yep.
Like you don't know how excited I was to do that tour.
Oh man,
And there was one other band that like every band on it was big besides us. We were like less than a year into being signed, and we're already getting a tour like this.
right,
So we ordered a butt ton of merch. We drove out to Cali. We had some routing dates with Unearth on the way, and then we woke up one morning. It was Paul's birthday. Paul, our bassist's
oh,
birthday, and we woke up to a call from our agent that said, "Hey, Sepultura can't get into the country, so we're gonna try to see if we can do the tour without Sepultura." And I was like, "Okay, well that sucks, but every other band on the package is huge,
yeah.
so we will be fine." And then we got a phone call like 3 hours later. We were in a hotel room, and they were like, "Hey, tour's canceled. Just go home." And
Oh
we were
no.
like, and because of after that happened, we had two members quit over it.
Whoa.
I'm
Yeah,
pretty
it's
sure we lost two members over that because it was devastating.
yeah.
Yeah. And we had wasted so many resources. And then shortly thereafter, we were about to do a tour with Wretched.
Yeah.
And right after that was the tour with Abiotic, Archspire, and Aborted,
Yep. Yeah, I
Archspire,
want to say it wasn't us.
and so both those tours back to back were going to be 10 weeks. And literally 5 days before we left for 2.5 months, I mean, more than that with routing.
Yeah.
5 days before we left for that, our van was stolen.
Oh, dude.
And we were devastated. We were going to drop the tours, and we couldn't. We couldn't find any vans locally that we could borrow. And we launched a GoFundMe. And even though it got 2,000 shares, everyone will share a GoFundMe, but no one's going to donate.
Right.
So we made like $100 on trying to raise $10,000, and we wound up having to pay $24,000 for a van because
Oh
it was
my
the
God.
only one we could find in time, and that wound up crippling the band. So because our momentum was crippled, and then shortly thereafter our finances were crippled, and we were already hurting so much that, and we had lost members over
Yeah.
this kind of stuff. Like it was really brutal. And then um, when we finally started to gain momentum again, we did cattle decap, we did thy art, and then we were talking about trying to do summer slaughter that year. We were talking about going to Europe with Within the Ruins, which would have been awesome.
Yeah.
And we were slated to finally make this long-awaited comeback where it's like, yes, we're finally getting back into it.
Right.
And then around that time, we had fulfilled our contract with E1 and Nuclear Blast. And I think everyone was just so tired. But I wasn't aware. So I was under the impression that we were going to keep going. And
Yep.
The guys wanted to drop the tours that we had coming up. And then we had just lost one member, and then we lost another one.
Oh.
And so now there's three of us. And the other two members that were still around were saying, we haven't really had a chance to be people. We haven't, everyone else is getting jobs and moving out and having girlfriends, and we haven't even gotten to meet ourselves as young adults or even adolescents. We started playing shows when we didn't have armpit hair. So
Right.
I think it was more fatigue than anything. It was like they were so tired. We had fulfilled our contracts and there wasn't the will to continue. So I fought it because Dark Sermon was like my whole identity at the time. Like I didn't have anything else. So I was really scared to let go. But here's what I knew. I didn't want it to turn into that band where all the members change, but there's one guy still in it. Because to me, the spirit of a band isn't defined by a single member. Like you need the songwriters, you need the people, like the creative forces, plural, to still be a part of it. So I was like, if I can't do Dark Sermon with Austin Good and Neil Minor and even Paul and Jordan and Bryson and Peach, like these members were so crucial that I just couldn't. I think it would be like a total ego trip if I was like, you know what, fine, you guys leave and I'll find better. It's like better songwriters that understand your style and themes. Probably not.
Right. No, I get it, and that story now I resonates so much with me because we went through the almost exactly the same thing, man. Like it's crazy that we kind of started the same together and then like and we broke up too. So like it really, it was like that same thing. It was, just being so financially in a hole from van issues and merch issues and, same thing, tours canceling or, us having to, cancel shows or for, our bass player's thumb got hit out of a socket on a tour and we had to cancel some shows and, all those things, and then it being a culmination of like, and then there being that one thing that like the straw that breaks the camel's back, and it's just like member changes, we can't handle this anymore. We've been putting our all into it for 5, 6, 7 years, and we're not seeing ROIs, returns on investments that we're needing to see to be able to do this sustainably, monetarily, and then like mentally too. It's mentally exhausting when. And it's just like you said, when you've got your whole identity in this one thing where, it was the same for me as well. It's like, what am I if I'm not doing this with Abiotic? Like, this is my baby. Like, what am I doing? Yeah. But we all, I think, I'm personally feeling very fortunate that we were able to kind of get back into things now with a different perspective, but needed that time to like get our lives together and to, like you said, like be adults outside of this for a little while.
Dude, it's one thing that has surprised me is how little understanding there is from outside forces about the strain that it puts on members. So there are people who are like, oh man, I can't believe you guys broke up. And it's like, if you understood that we were sort of promised all of this stuff initially, so we would sign with managers and agents and labels, and none of that came through. Meanwhile, we're trying to explain to our parents and our roommates and our girlfriends that, trust me, they said it'll work out. Meanwhile, we're going into debt. Like, in a situation like that, I mean, apply it to any other career. So let's say let's say you have a friend and he wants to be an accountant.
Yep.
And 7 years into being an accountant, he's not making minimum wage. He has lost almost every interpersonal relationship he had. He has to move back in with his parents. He has an old garbage car. He spends all of his time focusing on this one thing
Yep.
that hasn't returned. If your friend was like, you know what? I don't want to be an accountant anymore. You wouldn't be like, what's wrong with you? You're giving up on the dream. You'd be like,
Right.
wow, I get it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's totally fair. But, I think in that same token, it's ingrained in us, right? Like I need to do this. Like
Yeah.
in whatever form or fashion that I can figure out how to do it, I got to do it.
Yeah.
So and that's, I think, is a great segue into prison. So how did that come about after Dark Sermon? Was that something you were working on at the same time, or what, did you like take some time off and then say, hey, I need to get back on the saddle? Or
So I want to clear up a huge misconception. So I think a lot of people are under the impression that uh, I quit Dark Sermon to do prison, or that the other members of prison quit Adalia or the other bands they were in to do prison. And that is like the opposite of what happened.
yeah.
So what actually happened was we started working on prison. Austin Coop and myself started working on prison in 2015, like February of 2015, just
Wow.
like writing some songs. And both of our bands were doing fine, still signed, still touring. And all we wanted to do was create like a fun, heavy project that would just be internet only. We don't have to play shows. We don't need members. It was just like a creative outlet. And as our bands started winding down and we started realizing that they were falling apart, we weren't like, oh, let's jump on prison. We fought ferociously for our existing bands. Like, who the heck wants to start over when you have
Right.
tens of thousands of Facebook likes and people who know you and stream your music and buy your records? Who the heck wants to start over
Yeah.
and lose all that momentum? So we weren't like, oh, the band's slowing down, let's start something new. We fought, and when it was only when we realized that there was no way to resuscitate the projects that we were in, and then we had like a 4-month period of just mourning where we never wanted to do music again.
Right.
I shaved my head and I was like, that's it, I'm not doing music anymore. And it was only after all of that that I asked Cooper, our guitarist, like, do you want to keep writing prison, because now we're not doing stuff in our normal band, so it'd be fun to continue writing.
Right.
And as we wrote some more music and put it out, and keep in mind, when we first put out prison songs, we didn't have any member info online because we were in signed bands. So we didn't want, like, when you're signed, your label has first rights to any other projects that you're part of.
Yeah.
And our label didn't really want us to work on other stuff. They want us to focus on Dark Sermon. So
Yeah.
up until that point, nobody knew that prison was us. And we started seeing that the songs were doing well. We were liking it. And we were kind of just like, we're young. We don't want our music career to end. Why not try to give this a shot? And by give this a shot, we didn't mean start touring again. We
Right.
just meant write music. And we are very fortunate that we got a second chance at a career in music, because we literally had given up. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know those sentiments for sure. And yeah, when I saw the name kind of being thrown around and saw you kind of getting more involved in posting, and then like saw those first couple of ad mats, I was like, holy shit! Like Johnny's doing it again, and they're doing it big. What's going on? Or like, who are they signing to? How are they doing all this? And when I saw it was just like, and you guys have been, for lack of a better term, preaching it since the beginning. Unsigned, no backing like that. No, I correct me if I'm wrong. No management. No, like it's just you guys. So how is that path differed from the Dark Sermon path, where it's like, you expect all these things when you have this team of a label and an agent and a manager and all that stuff. How has that trajectory been different for you?
So I'll say this. I'm not going to name names, and I'm not sour about anything anymore. I'm just
Yeah.
doing it with respect.
Yeah.
But we worked with some of the biggest and most established industry professionals, like agents and managers and stuff. Initially, we could not have been more set up for success if you looked at just the roster.
Right.
Like other bands that these people had on their roster were, I mean, you're looking at 2012, 2013, 2014. So this is like the Whitechapels, the Job for Cowboys, the Cannibal Corpses. This is like cream of the crop, like the people headlining Summer Slaughter. And so we figured, we have these big names behind us. We're going to be golden. And I think what we didn't realize is that if you have a big name who isn't personally invested in the band, or who maybe has 15 bands that are way bigger than you and make way more money than you,
right,
then you wind up being like, it's better to be your own top priority than to be a really established person's bottom priority. So we had to learn that lesson the hard way, by being deprioritized by a lot of industry people. And I think that at the time I took that really personally.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what the heck? We're good live. We have good records. We're responsible. We will break our backs to do tours and meet commitments.
Yep.
And I was like, what the heck is these people's problem with me? And I realized the problem wasn't with me. The problem was that Whitechapel earns 50 times what we earn, and they're getting a way bigger commission there. So why would they answer my phone call?
Right.
So I realized over time that we can't expect people to care about what we do as much as we do. So the approach with Prison was just, and it might not be this way forever, but at least initially, we want to do as much as we can on our own, because we don't want to fall into the trap of saying, oh, well, Roadrunner signed Slipknot, then Roadrunner will do the same for us. It's like, you don't know that.
Yeah.
Like, Roadrunner isn't a machine, it's a bunch of people. So the question isn't, will Roadrunner do it? It's like, will Jeff do it, or whoever the guy is,
right.
And it's 50-50 on whether or not that'll happen.
Yeah. Well, so you said not always. So is that an option for Prison to kind of seek that out, or maybe not seek it out if it comes and if it's the right, if you feel like it's the right move?
I think that here's what I'll say. I enjoy being wrong. So there have been times in my life where I've been so convinced, and you knew me when I was a lot more stubborn than I am now.
Same, actually. I want to clarify that too.
I'm still pretty stubborn, but I think that before I thought, if I set my mind to something, then that's it, and no one can convince me otherwise. And I think recently I've been proven wrong in the most amazing ways. So on one hand, I do feel like I have a problematic history with labels. It's not that they screwed us and stole all our money. It was just inactivity. It was a lack of care or passion. And there's nothing to say that we won't meet a person tomorrow who works at a label who says, you know what? I believe in what you guys sing about. I believe in your live show, and I'm going to push. So I think honestly, it's equally likely that we'll sign a label or we won't. And I'm way less concerned with that and way more concerned with what we create and what we can do as a band in the meantime.
That makes sense. So before we move on to Cope Notes and get a little bit into that, do you remember what your first show was like and what band it was with?
So my first show, I remember a few things about it. And I have like very serious memory loss. And somehow I remember my first show and all of the terrible, awkward parts of it. So here are a few things that I remember. It was our first show, and we didn't have to open. We were actually billed second.
Okay.
It was really cool to not have to play.
Was it in reference, or was it another band?
It was in reference, yeah. Okay. We played the Neptune Lounge in Tarpon Springs, Florida. It is just as glamorous and glorious as it sounds. No, it was like an actual you know, I had some good memories there. I'll say this: it wasn't the safest, cleanest venue in Florida, but I remember specifically that I was terribly nervous. I was socially unskilled, is putting it very nicely.
Yeah.
And I remember being on stage and looking down, and I had a stud belt that I wrapped caution tape around the front of, like hockey tape. And I was wearing these white Pumas and jean shorts, blue jean shorts, that were like skin tight, like skinny jeans, and a red Stray from the Path shirt. And the reason I remember that is because I did not look at the audience the entire time we we're on stage.
Oh,
I
no.
straight up looked down.
Oh man.
And I paced back and forth, and I just looked straight down. So all I saw for 20 minutes during one of the scariest moments in my life was my outfit. So I was petrified and so intimidated. And I saw a video, and it is
Oh, there's
embarrassing.
video.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's still around anymore, but I've seen video of it, and it was not. Um, it doesn't make me look epic, I'll say that. But I remember after having done it, I was like, wow, now that I proved to myself that I can do it,
Yeah.
the second time I'm not going to have that same level of fear. I might still have fear, but it'll go down over time, and it really has.
Yeah. Cool. So what got you? You saying that you were sorry, what was it that you said, that you didn't have the best social skills
Yeah.
at the time, and then obviously, I think all of us first times on stage was going to be the butterflies, and we're going to be nervous, but you feeling that way. So do you think that you pursued being a vocalist to try and overcome some of those things?
It's so interesting that you would ask me that. So I actually wanted to be a guitarist. I've been playing
Oh,
guitar
wow.
for way longer than I've been doing vocals. I
Yeah.
started playing guitar when I was 8.
Oh, no way.
I play guitar frequently. I have a Gibson S1 up here that's old, and
Sick.
gorgeous. I have a Buddy Holly Fender Strat, a Mexican Strat here that I love.
Word.
I have a Taylor Big Baby. I have an Ibanez short scale bass up here, and then I have a Yamaha, like a fingerstyle, like classical guitar.
Oh,
And that's
nice,
what I'm playing
man.
the most. I've been playing fingerstyle for 20 years, literally.
Wow.
And so when it came time to think about joining a band, I was like, Psh, easy, I'm gonna be a guitarist. That's what I love.
Yeah.
And I remember finding out that In Reference needed a singer, and I was like, oh well, I want to be in a band. And I remember not having any idea how to do vocals at all,
Yeah.
but I remember really enjoying, like, remember when you would go to shows and you would like jump and pile up,
Yeah.
and maybe you get to hold the microphone for a second and say a word or whatever.
Yep.
I remember feeling so empowered when I got to hold the microphone for a second and yell, and I would hear my voice back in like videos, and I would think like, wow, there's something so emotionally powerful about screaming, like yelling full
Yep.
volume. And I knew that I liked writing lyrics, so I think taking the vocalist path versus the guitarist path was more about me wanting to write lyrics, and like me wanting to say something, like having something to say and wanting to communicate it.
Yeah.
It had to do way more with that than with like being a vocalist.
Oh, okay. So then it ended up just working out that some of the payoffs of being a vocalist were like, overcoming some of those, maybe some of those fears and things that you had.
Yeah, I also think people who've known me for a long time know that I did improv comedy and taught improv comedy for a long time.
Yeah.
I credit that with a majority of, I think that and being on stage has helped me feel more comfortable in social situations, because you will never look dumber than when you step on your microphone cord and it unplugs your mic and you go to scream.
Yeah.
You'll never look dumber than when you're in an improv scene and you forget what you're talking about, and then someone makes you a cow that has a stutter or something. And you're like,
Yeah.
well, there's no way I'm going to look cool. So get over like quote like these awkward moments on a stage, then awkward moments in real life feel way less awkward because you're like, oh, this is only in front of 3 people, not 200.
Right, right, exactly. Cool. So let's get a little bit into Cope Notes. So how did that get started? I know it's kind of intertwined as well, right, with prison, where prison is very much focused on mental health. So was it a result of prison, or was it kind of something that happened together?
It so I've been volunteering in the mental health field for like a decade, and it's always been something that's important to me. In Dark Sermon, I've veiled everything. So
Yeah.
if you really dig into my lyrics, you'll see that I'm writing about suicidal ideation and schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, but it's all like these beautiful metaphors and these big words. And it's because it's in large part because I love writing, but
Yeah.
it also I was really scared of just telling it like it was. Like I didn't feel like telling people like, I hallucinate. So I'd
Right.
rather write a song about hallucinations to where there's a degree of separation where I could feel safe. And in prison, I think out the gate, I talked to our guitarist, like, are you cool with me being a little more blunt with our lyrics? And he said, yeah. And when we toured, so I was running a peer support resource called Not a Therapist, um, at the time that we did the Suicide Silence tour.
Oh wow.
And that was in late 2017. I was already running that. And I just wanted people to have something. Like I realized when we saw a line of kids at the merch table after we played, half of them were there to buy merch. If only all of them were there to buy merch, that would help a lot. Half were there to do that. The other half were there to tell us about something that happened in their lives and how they relate to the lyrics. And we realized that the real value that prison was providing was offering that support in the form of sharing something that has so much empathy in it. And then I realized when we leave a venue, like we might not see that kid for 8 months or a year and a half
Yeah.
or ever. We might never see that kid again if he moves. So we realized, or I realized, I wanted there to be something that we could leave somebody with where it's like, hey, we might not be back, but you shouldn't rely on me because I'm a person.
Right.
Like I might not respond to your DM because I was doing something at the time and forgot, and
Yeah.
or I might not be in a good mood when you come to the merch table because I'm tired or I have to pee or whatever. So I wanted to like give people something that could be more reliable and more helpful than I could ever be.
Right. And that's where Cope Notes came from.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when did that get started?
So uh, Not a Therapist existed for less than a year, and before that, I ran something called. It was literally called Better People Tampa Bay because I'm a genius, and that was the greatest name I could come up with. Um, and so I only ran that for like 6 months. So Coke Notes was like the culmination of things that I had tried before and just couldn't scale.
Okay.
And Coke Notes launched March 1st of 2018. So we're just over 2 years old.
Awesome, man. Congratulations. That's huge.
It is horrifying, especially during a global economic crisis. It
Yeah.
is. I picked like imagine buying a house in 2006.
Uh,
You know what I mean? Like that's what I did. I
yeah,
started
you
it
think so?
3 years before an economic crisis.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but when is the right time to do something, right? So,
Yeah.
um, so so then you start Cope Notes. So for those folks who aren't aware what Cope Notes are, give us like a little rundown.
Yeah. So long story short, Cope Notes uses daily text messages to help your brain get healthier over time. So if you have a tendency to gravitate towards negative thoughts or anxiety or depression or stress, Cope Notes trains the brain to cope healthily with those things and then build healthier ways of dealing with them in the future.
Okay, and I did, and forgive me not being super informed on it, but I did see that you were working with therapists and things like that who are developing this kind of content. Is that, or did it start with you and then move that way?
So we have a peer support base, and then clinical oversight. So
Okay.
what that means is a lot of tools will have doctors write content and then peers will review it. And a lot of times tools like that, at least in my experience, will feel stiff and clinical and sciency, and they just
Right.
kind of miss, like they don't have that empathy factor, and I don't feel understood. So
Okay.
we flipped it. So you, like a lot of 12-step programs have that peer support base
Yeah.
where it's people who have been through it, they've lived through it. So the content is written by peers with lived experience, and then it's reviewed by a panel of mental health professionals. So they're not the ones writing the content, they're the ones that are editing and vetting the content to make sure it's we're not just texting people smile. Like it
Right.
actually has to have a positive psychological impact.
Gotcha. Okay. So then that sounds to me like there's a lot of employees. Am I wrong?
So yes and no. So fortunately, I have met a butt ton of people through volunteering for 10 years. You meet a
Yeah.
lot of people in the mental health field, and so a lot of our there's a lot of people involved in Cope Notes, but not all of them are full time. So we only have a couple people who are like full time in the weeds with us every day, and that's like security and tech and dev and like the complicated crap.
Yeah.
And then for everything else, like legal and design and all that stuff, we will outsource and contract people. So fortunately, that stuff is on a contract basis.
Yeah.
But the few people who are relying on us for paychecks right now, I feel a tremendous responsibility for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. So, like I mentioned, I just manage a business. Like I'm not even on that side. So, sounds to me that you're essentially in like a CEO position, right? Is
Yes,
that's I couldn't
it's a lot.
even
Sure.
hard to fathom even in my shoes where I've got like a management career, if you
Mhm.
will. And I'm in a similar boat and just feeling responsible for people's well-being
Oh,
financially.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So, just want to say that and we've talked about it before, but I'm super proud of you, man. I'm proud to
Thank you
see
so
like, yeah, like where where you are now and, the getting through the struggles that it took to get you there. And I'm sure it's ongoing, right? But it just goes to show and people like you and like Frank from the World We Knew, who's doing, the For the Nomads right now and those are you guys are folks that continue to inspire me that it's even though it's a struggle, that's the struggle is part of the journey, and there are ways to make the struggle a little bit easier. So it's something like Cope Notes, um, but it's hopefully we'll have a payoff of some sort, and as long as you keep at it and you are doing it for reasons that you're going to be comfortable with sleeping at night.
Dude, that is what I'm realizing. Like, so this is we don't need to talk about this for a long time, but I had a near death experience last year,
Oh wow.
and it really opened my eyes to. So at the time, I was like considering quitting Cope Notes because it's so freaking hard.
Yeah.
I try not to talk a lot about it, but it is just an unimaginable amount of work and sacrifice, and I was so burnt out. And I was thinking about quitting. And at that time, during that near death experience, I was with other people
Oh man.
who were also in the same boat as me. And
Oh,
without getting too far into it, but I was going to not be alive. And so were a lot of other people because
wow.
of the situation. So I remember thinking, like, there are people here with me that will also die right now who have way more money than me, who have a way nicer house than me, drive a way nicer car than me. These are people who have been to Europe. These are people, because I never got to go to Europe.
Yeah.
There are people who have lived dreams that I've dreamed of living. And then I also thought, there's also people who won't have a sense of closure if they die right now because they cheated on their wife or they've been embezzling money from their company or something. And I was
Yeah.
like, wow, if I die right now, I won't feel like I have anything to tie up. Like I
Yeah.
really feel like if I die in this moment, and I was convinced that I would, I was like, I can die happily because I've done right by the people in my life.
Yeah.
And I was like, after I found out that I was going to be alive, spoiler alert, I'm still alive. I was blown away because I was like, that's really all that matters is like in the moment that you think you don't get to have any more life, will you be proud? Will you stand by the last year of your life and say, I was a good person. I did right by the people I love. I did right by strangers,
Yeah.
and I was generous, and I did what I was on earth to do. Like you said about music, you feel like you have to do it. Imagine if I spent the last year um, shoveling snow and mowing lawns because I felt like music wasn't worth it
Right.
and I needed to do something else. Like imagine we could die at any moment and the moment that I die, I want to be able to say the last year of my life I spent doing what I was called to do. Sorry if
Well,
that was a big rant, but
no, no,
that's
that's okay. I'm glad that you, yeah, I'm glad that you did, and I'm glad that nothing happened to you, man.
yeah.
That's crazy. Probably not as heavy as your situation, but I had a motorcycle wreck a few years ago, and that
Mm.
did kind of shake my perspective too. And it's really like, life is a fleeting thing, and we really need to just do right by each other, like live with some kind of empathy if you possibly can. Really try and put yourself in someone else's shoes just for a minute, and you know think about if you were that person, you probably would make the same decisions that they made, and you would probably be in a similar situation. So, kind of like try and empathize. I've tried to move toward that place in my life as well. Um, so that being said, so in maybe your experience with Cope Notes and maybe even on the road, and obviously you don't have to name any names or anything, but I'm happy to kind of be a little bit transparent about it too. But do you feel like folks in the music industry and the touring world, are they disproportionately affected with kind of some mental health issues and things like that?
So from what I have experienced, and the people that I've toured with, I have been genuinely shocked to learn that specifically one long held belief that I have is not true.
Yeah.
And my long held belief was the bigger your band is, the happier you are. I have thought that from the moment I got on a stage, from before when I got on the stage.
Yeah.
I would see, growing up, I listened to a ton of rap. So I would see like Busta Rhymes on MTV or something. I'm like, he must be so happy. Like, look, he gets to make music and everyone gets to hear it. And then
Yep.
as I start touring and playing with these bands that I've looked up to for years and years, in some cases decades, and you get to know these people and you realize they're struggling with addiction or their marriage is falling apart or they survived a suicide attempt just before the tour started.
Wow.
And it is astounding to have that dream. Like you build a dream of other people who are you draw a line. So you think, well, I'm dealing with this because I'm weak and I'm fragile and my band is small and I didn't grow up with money, and make all the excuses you want.
Right.
And then you meet somebody who has everything that you say you don't have. They
Yep.
they have courage and they have strength and they have connections and all this stuff. And when you're on tour with somebody, the first week people are very cordial, and then a couple weeks in we start opening up because we become family at that point. Like we load each other's gear, we help each other pack up merch. It's
Yeah.
like you build such a bond that towards the end people will open up and be like, yo, my brother took his own life when he was 12, and I am still dealing with that now. And I've had people tell
Wow.
me things like that on tour, and me think, well, what the heck, you're in this big band. Bad stuff isn't supposed to happen to you, it's supposed to happen to small bands. So
Right.
I've realized that it is universal, like the level of sacrifice that musicians have to make. Like I think people chalk it up mostly to finance. And I think that that's kind of a disservice to musicians because
Yeah.
a lot of musicians could make more money working at McDonald's. And we choose not to because of what you said. We feel called to. We feel like it's the most generous way to use the skills and talents and passions that we have.
Yeah.
And what people don't realize is all of the things outside of finance that are affected. And a lot of it, like I mentioned, is relationships and living situations and opportunities. And I think a lot of people imagine that musicians don't experience doubt. Like we're like, oh yeah, I wouldn't change it for the world. And then your buddy buys a Tesla and you're like, wow, I can't even fix the freaking windshield on my car.
Yep.
Or like you get a wedding invitation from one of your friends' weddings and you can't even go. You miss funerals. And it's like that stuff literally makes you feel guilty for having devoted your life to strangers when your friends and family members, you feel like you're neglecting them for kids you don't even know.
Yeah, I was going to say that guilt is, I think, a big part of what we do in general, because there's that aspect, right, of like missing the birthdays and the anniversaries and, like you said, the weddings. And then it's also the guilt of like, kind of the flip side of it is like we have this opportunity to get to do what we love, and how many people get to do what they love and pursue it in the way that we get to. So then you get on this whole like why me kind of thing, like why do
syndrome,
exactly, like why do I get to do this, like, and someone else doesn't, and like am I making someone in my life feel shitty because they're sacrificing something for me to be able to do this,
dude. So the specific instance that comes to mind with prison, we were offered a tour. It didn't happen. We were offered a tour with Orgy. I'm not sure if you know. Yeah.
Jesus.
But I freaking, dude, their music video for Stitches. If you haven't heard of Orgy, please look up their music video, Stitches. It is like the epitome of like rock star. Like when I was a kid, that's a rock star. You paint your nails, you wear these shiny silver pants, and you freaking have crazy green spiked hair, and you wear all white, and you have $1 million music video budget. Like, it was that turn of the century, like neo-futuristic, freaking go watch it. But I remember when we got the offer, I had like an identity crisis, because I was like, I've always wanted to be like a rock star, quote unquote. Like I've always wanted to, like, you see Slipknot and Korn, you're like, yeah, that's what I want, man. 15,000 screaming fans, like, come on.
Yeah.
And then when you get an opportunity to get a little closer to that, and you see how tall the mountain actually is, like the first thing I thought was, I'm not good enough for that.
Yeah.
I'm not talented enough for that. I've only been doing this 10 years. And there are people who have been doing it 20 years whose bands can't even get one of the tours that I'm getting. And I started beating myself down to the point where I like wanted to say no to the tour because I felt so intimidated by it. And my sister was like, isn't this what you've always wanted to do? Like, haven't you been trying to tour with new metal bands with Prison? And I was like, yeah, but I didn't know we actually could. It was horrifying.
Oh man, well, hopefully that after, post-corona that happens for you guys.
Oh, I'm praying for it. That was sick.
So, I know we got a few minutes left. I wanted to just briefly touch on your fucking TED Talk, dude. I saw somebody I know on a TED Talk, which was mind-blowing for me personally. And I can imagine just on your side being on that stage, what that was like. And I did catch a little bit of your interview with Naveen and Cheney on Copper Crab, so I got a little bit of insight on it. But for the folks who don't know, Johnny has a TED Talk where he actually talks just about what we're getting into now, which is, again, mental health. And actually, you'll probably do I'm going to do you a disservice, so you'll probably do a little bit better on what the overall theme was and where they can see it.
Yeah, so if you Google, or I don't know if you should Google or YouTube it. It's on YouTube, obviously, but you can look up TEDx Johnny Crowder. It should show up. But the title is called How to Grow as a Person and Why It Sucks. And I can't believe they let me get away with that title, because when I submitted it, I'm like, wow, I'm going to get they're not going to air my video.
Yeah.
But basically I talk about why you can't change overnight. So why there's such a big gap between when you decide to change and when the change actually takes place. So it's just about how this stuff is very gradual, and there's not a, you can't just decide to change and then the next day you're different. Like,
Right.
I'm sure some people out there can, like, and I would equate it to quitting cigarettes or something. I have friends who smoke cigarettes, and they'll say things like, "Ugh, I know I need to quit." They've already decided, they've made the decision that quitting would be healthy, and they've tried several times and couldn't. They've tried patches, they've tried gum,
Yeah.
and it's because the brain isn't good at switching on like turning on a dime. So
Yeah.
the talk is just about how you can't beat yourself up because there's scientific data that supports the idea that it's okay that you can't change that fast.
That's awesome. Well, I really enjoyed it. It was really insightful. I'm sure, was it like, must have been a really daunting experience just having to write it and then perform it. Do you get multiple takes? Is it just like, hey, just go? Like, what's
Well,
that like?
so first of all, I didn't know this, but they give you 5.5 months to write it. And you turn in draft after draft after draft, edit
Wow.
after edit. Every word has to be approved by Ted. So
Oh man.
I was under the impression, I speak all the time, like at events and conferences, and I speak from an outline.
Yeah.
So I know what I'm talking about, but I will kind of play it by ear and improvise based on the topic.
Yep.
And with this, you're not supposed to say one word that isn't on your final draft that you turn in. And
Yeah.
you get one practice run the day before dress rehearsal.
Oh man.
And you have 18 minutes
Nope.
to deliver it one time. And then the next day, you have one chance in front of an audience and this huge camera crew. You have 18 minutes. And that's it. You give it and you walk off, and however it turned out, it turned out. And I
Wow.
was shaking, dude.
Oh, I can imagine, man. But you look calm, cool, and collected up there, though. So, it's like, that's why I asked. Like, did you get multiple takes? Is there some editing going on? Because it was very cohesive, very smooth. So,
Dude, thank you.
awesome. Yeah.
It was literally practice giving it in a mirror. Like, it's what you think it is when you
Yeah.
talk like speech writers and you see stuff in movies. It's listening to it like it's a song on a run or a bike ride or whatever. I would listen to my recorded speech, and then I would give it anytime I drove anywhere, or like, because I have memory loss, like I said. So
Yeah.
I thought that there was going to be a teleprompter, or they would let me have notes.
Wow.
No. So I had to memorize the talk like it's a song, and I would try to quote sing along in my car for months ahead of time, and I can't believe I didn't mess up. That's crazy.
Dude, it's awesome. I feel like I'm gonna say I feel like the coolest part about doing a TED Talk is the little like Steve Jobs mic that you get to have.
Yeah, I call it the Britney Spears mic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's like
legendary.
super like futuristic. It's like almost to where you can't see it, but then when you do like a little turn, you're like, oh, I see what
Yeah.
this guy's doing with the cool mic.
And you really think about, because TED Talks, like, one of the organizers was like, hey, don't like stress out, don't put too much pressure on yourself. But it's really exciting because this is going to be the #1 Google result for your name for the rest of your life. And I was like, oh, that doesn't match the first thing that you said at all. So before I got on stage, I was like looking at the mic, and I was like, oh, do I have boogers? And I was like checking my nose, and then I'm like, oh, I should trim my beard different. And you get so in your head because you realize there's not multiple takes. Like, you get out there and you leave. We don't have any creative say in the edit, the thumbnail, the description of the video,
Wow.
the lighting. It's like, once it's up, it's up. And if it sucks, you know what you can do about it?
Not
Nothing.
Wow.
Forever. So I am just thankful that it turned out the way it did, and that I feel proud to share it, because who knows if I'll ever get a chance to do that again.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Are there like, is that a frequent occurrence of people like returning and doing second and third talks and stuff?
So I didn't think that it was until I met somebody who had done 6.
Six.
Now
Wow.
this guy is like, has been speaking for like 40 years. He's like
Yeah.
an older dude, he used to write for like the Jay Leno show, and like
Oh wow.
he's like in a different category than me, I would think. So maybe they let some people come back, but I'm definitely going to apply to another one. It's just it took so much work that
Yeah.
I need to be comfortable enough with where Prison and Cope Notes are to take on that level of work again to do another one.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, Johnny, dude, thank you so much for coming on. I know we could go on for like another hour, but I think we'll save that for you coming back. So hopefully we'll
Yeah.
get you have you back on here and we can do some more deep dives. But I do last thing I want to ask you is going to be for the Big Shred playlist. So what is on your playlist right now? What are some bands you or artists, whatever you've been listening to, and who should some people be checking out?
I want to look at my recently played on. Is that a thing that you can view?
On Spotify?
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
pretty sure it is.
Sum 41, All Killer, No Filler.
Okay.
That record is the ultimate bike record. Like getting on my bike and freaking, and also Blink 182, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. That just feels like bike riding music to me.
Yeah.
I've also been listening to. Do you know Returning We Hear the Larks?
No.
They have a record called Far Stepper of Wide Sea, and it
Okay.
sounds like nothing I've ever heard in my freaking life. It's kind of like I just say sounds like nothing, but then I'll compare it to something. But it's kind of Humanity's Last Breath, Viljarta kind of stuff.
Okay.
And that's like my favorite brand of metal right now. Is
Yeah.
that like almost nonsensical riffs, but the groove is like palpable.
Oh yeah.
And then also, I'll say this AMPM. Are you familiar with that? Oh, so the band is called The White Noise,
The
and
White
they have a
Noise.
record
Haven't heard of
called
them.
AMPM, and that's like more bike riding music. And then, of course, Cloud Kicker.
Nice.
Cloud Kicker is freaking like my best friend. I can't even explain what Cloud Kicker does for me.
Killer. All right, cool. Well, keep an eye out for the Big Shred podcast playlist that I will be putting out after this episode with all of the sick bands that Johnny and artists that Johnny just mentioned, along with upcoming Riley. So, Johnny, again, thank you so much for coming on. Before we go as well, if you want to just plug your band, Cope Notes, where people can find you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so if you want to try Cope Notes, I encourage you to do so. It's not going to automatically charge you. We don't steal your data. It's anonymous. I won't even know if you do it. But I encourage you to give it a shot. You can text the word Cope to the number 33222 if you live in the US. And that'll give you a couple weeks for free. Or you can go to the website, copenotes.com, if you live outside of the US. We have users all over the world, so we got you covered. You just have to use the website instead of the short code. And then if you are on Spotify or YouTube or Apple Music or whatever, my band is called Prison. We put out a live album a couple weeks ago,
That's right. We didn't even get to talk about that. Jeez.
which I'm super pumped on. So definitely check that out. Our more recent record is called Still Alive. We put that out last year. And then if you want to follow me personally, my name is Johnny Crowder. And then on Instagram, my handle is Johnny Crowder Loves You. And I don't have Twitter because I'm afraid of it.
That's fair. It's very fair. All right, Johnny, again, thank you so much, man. We will catch up again soon, I hope. Be safe through all this stuff, and best of luck with Cope Notes, with Prison, with everything, man. Keep on keeping on, dude.
Aye, aye. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, thanks. Talk soon, man. Alrighty, so we are at the middle of episode 12 of the Big Shred podcast. If you're just joining us, that was Johnny Crowder of Prison and Cope Notes. He also has a podcast for Cope Notes as well, which we didn't get into, but definitely check out his podcast, check out everything he's doing. He's doing a lot of great things for folks in the mental health realm. So we will be moving on to our second guest of the evening, which is Riley McShane. He plays in a band called Legion, among some other bands. And here we go, Riley. What's going on? I'm going to do the same thing I always do. You may be muted. You are. Nope. Let me see if maybe it's on my end. No. Yeah, you still got the old mutaroo.
Oh, there we go.
There we go, bud. How you doing,
There
man?
we go. Hey. How you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you? Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. And you wading in the proverbial wings.
Yes, of course, of course. It was actually really cool listening to him. I see a lot about prison online and among my peers, and they seem to be a very well respected band in the scene. I've listened to him here and there. I haven't seen them live though, but I've always wanted to because of the
Yeah.
way that Johnny presents himself on stage. It's like super cool. It's very unique
Yeah.
with the words and stuff. Uh, so it was really cool listening to him talk and getting some insight on like his career and what he's doing for mental health. He seems like a very awesome dude.
Yeah, yeah, and it's been cool to watch his that whole kind of thing progress since we were just like young dudes in the van like eating Taco Bell and shit. So it's been fun.
Now
But
that we're
but
old, now that we're old dudes in the van eating Taco Bell.
yeah, exactly. How things have changed. No, they certainly have not. So how are things with you, man? How's quarantine been treating you? I know, again, Allegion was supposed to be out on a headliner right now. Obviously shitty with the whole Corona shit going on. So what do you been doing during quarantine?
Yeah, I mean, it is shitty for sure, but it is what it is. It happens. And it's we're just trying to stay creative as far as like staying engaged with our fans and staying, in the public eye. Obviously,
Yeah,
we lost a lot of money not doing that tour. Headlining tours are generally the most money you can make in this business. So
absolutely.
losing out on that was definitely a blow that we weren't expecting. But we're working around it. We're very fortunate to have all of our Patreon supporters still actively doing that, so we're seeing a little bit of monthly income from there.
That's great.
Spotify has, Spotify among other platforms have initiated things like the direct donate buttons kind of thing. If you check out Spotify and look on pretty much any artist right now, there's like a COVID-19 button that you can click, and it
Yeah.
usually just goes like directly to a PayPal account. We've been doing merch hustles and stuff. So yeah, the regular things, as well as a few more creative solutions involving live streams like this, and other stuff in the form of specialized merch items that we're working on that are coming down the pike, and things to just kind of stay in focus.
Yeah, I totally hear you. We're trying to do similar as well. I mean, we didn't have any touring plans. We were actually supposed to be starting to record our next record at the end of this month. Kind of just seeing if that's still going to be a thing. I'm hoping it is, but it's been great to see you guys still at it pretty much. So engaged as much as you possibly can be, and I think now is really it's gonna be one of those things where I kind of hate to compare it to this, but it's gonna be one of those things that like where wartime kind of starts all these new innovations, right? Like I think that's where like plastic came from or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't
Yep.
know. I don't know shit about anything, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think it is really gonna get bands getting creative and maybe start some new forms of engaging with fans and just new ways about going about doing this thing we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even the future landscape of the touring industry is super weird right now. I'm seeing
Yep.
all these articles popping up being like, no moshing, no crowd surfing,
Yeah.
and all these distancing rules. I know Franz from Attila, I think is his band.
Yeah.
I know he just made like a big tweet being like, I've been talking to industry professionals, like top people about
Yeah.
all these things that are happening, and it's going to be a whole different world when we go back to it. Like, I'm not expecting shows till 2021, and all this just like crazy shit. So it's definitely something that we're going to have to adjust to. But I feel like because of how inherently difficult it is to stay afloat, especially not only in the music industry but especially in the metal industry.
Oh yeah.
We're kind of used to that trial by fire method of working, and I think that it's like when a door closes, another one opens for metalheads. That's kind of how we have to view things to stay afloat and stay relevant. Um, so I think that it's it's really showcased how creative and multifaceted a lot of the artists in the music industry in general are. It's definitely not a phenomenon that's exclusive to metal, of people doing these cool live stream events and
Yeah.
these digital concerts and drive-in tours rather. It's just been really cool seeing that creativity expand beyond the music and be applied to this very real situation that we're in. So uh, I'm interested to see what's going to come, and it's almost like exciting to me to like, it sucks because it's like obviously touring is our bread and butter, and like we can't really do that right now. But on the other hand, it's very exciting to see all these new innovations and to, be a part of these changes to the industry that may be permanent. You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of us are, whether we're just starting or at the peak of our careers, like being a part of this change is like it's history being made, and it's special to be a part of that, even if it's really inconvenient.
Yeah, that's huge. I hadn't even really thought about it that way. That you can get those things where you can't really, you're in something and can't see outside of you or around you. But yeah, we're definitely in a time where we're, like you said, history in the making as far as our industry, our genre, and having that. I think having that mindset is really what's going to like make or break in this situation where it's,
Yeah,
you have to be, like you said, we've been in those positions where we're constantly pivoting and constantly having to try something new, and in a market that's arguably saturated and maybe oversaturated. How do we stick out? How do we? And then now it's another opportunity to start doing those things and maybe be on the cutting edge of a lot of these different um, methods of doing different things.
absolutely, absolutely. And there's some things that have been in practice for a while. Streaming particularly is one of those things where it's like I've been Twitch streaming on and off for several years now,
Yeah.
and it's cool seeing so many people start to really utilize that as a viable option. Even though it's been there for a while, it's just like it's cool seeing people use these platforms and these tools that have been available but not necessarily capitalized upon. So seeing people really jump on these trains and really expand their brand and do things that are going to help their business grow in a positive way is really cool to see as well. So it's like I said, it's a shitty situation, but it's almost exciting seeing all these new changes and these new innovations happening.
Yeah, totally. And then we'll just take a quick minute in regards to Twitch, and we can just give ourselves a little shameless plug. So where can people find you? Where can people find you on Twitch?
So I am on Twitch under Riley Allegion. It's pretty straightforward. I do a lot of variety streaming, whether that's MMOs or first-person shooters or old retro games. Pretty much just whatever I'm in the mood for. And then I'm starting to try to incorporate more music-based stuff into my streams. I haven't actually done any music streams yet because the setup, as you and I both know,
Yep.
after having chatted with our buddy Brody from Rivers of Nile,
Oh yeah.
is a nightmare. It's an absolute shit show trying to get all of your audio signals routed to the same place. So I finally got that dialed in, got all the gear that I need. So now I'm just kind of yes. So now I'm just kind of waiting to now that all that's taken care of, I can plan how to execute those streams well and get that ball rolling. So yeah, twitch.tv/Riley Allegion. Follow up.
Sweet. And if you guys don't already know, I'm at twitch.tv/abioticjohn. And this shit's not easy, man. Like it takes a lot to make this what's going on happen. And then like you said, even more so on the audio side, if you're trying to, even if I'm trying to do something as simple as like play guitar while I use my mic so you guys can hear me. It's a process. So like Riley said, shout out to our boy Brody for being the hero we all deserve, not only in Rivers but also figuring out how to make this shit work. And check out Brody on Twitch. He's doing some really cool shit as far as live writing sessions. So he's writing riffs and showing you how he goes about it. And he's obviously very sick, and his band is obviously very sick. And if for some reason you haven't heard them I don't know what you're doing, but go check them out.
Yeah. What rock have you been under?
Yeah,
I
seriously.
think his handle is twitch.tv/Brody of Nile.
There you go.
I
We're
think that's
we're
his thing.
we're pretty, it's pretty obvious. I'd say we're the word that I'm looking for is predictable. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah,
We're pretty
we're
predictable.
all band guys.
Yeah.
Oh, what marketing point do I have attached to me? Oh yeah, this thing.
Yeah. So obviously, the headliner got pushed. Did you guys have anything else going on that had to like get postponed, pushed? I'm sure maybe there's stuff you can't talk about, but
Yeah, no, we were gonna headline a festival up in Canada called Loud as Hell Fest.
man.
That we were looking forward to that obviously had to get canceled until next year when they do it around the same time frame. So
Yeah.
hopefully we can still jump on that. It was a super sick lineup, tons of fun bands. So that was kind of a bummer missing out on, but hopefully we're around when we when they come back next year.
No,
But
I'm sure it'll happen, and yeah, those Canada fests are always super fun. So.
Canada is so. Can we talk about how sick Canada is for a second?
Anytime you want to, because I fucking love Canada, dude.
I have never played a bad show in Canada ever. Like it's always an amazing time. Like the fans there are so into it. It's like everybody is having such a good time. Like everybody's so friendly. Everybody's buying merch. Everybody is just like it's so supportive at every Canadian show I've ever been to. Even when bad stuff happens at Canadian shows, I had a video go like semi-viral last year when I was on Bloodletting with Continuum.
I know which one it is.
Yeah, where this dude jumped on stage and like he did this move where he just like right in my face, and I was like, bro, what are you doing? Like, get the fuck out of here. And kind of like grabbed him by his shirt and shook him a little bit just to kind of try to shake some sense into this dude. But yeah, even when bad shit happens at Canadian shows, like that show was still amazing. I had such a good night. So
and he was super apologetic after too. So
dude, he so was not. That guy was such an asshole. But it's okay. It's okay.
I was gonna say, pretty much every other Canadian aside from that guy is always
lots
super
of other
apologetic.
Canadians were very apologetic on his behalf.
Oh,
for sure.
That's what I was
like, dude, I'm so sorry about that guy. And I'm like, do you know him? Like, you don't have to apologize for him. It's fine.
But we exist together, so I'm very sorry. So it's really the Canadian kind of, that's their whole thing. It's Tim Hortons. We're very sorry.
Yeah. let me take you out to Timmy's, bro. I'll get you some tidbits.
Oh,
get all about this horrible thing.
I need a double, dude. God damn it.
Yes.
Yeah, so Canada, I like you said too, I can't say enough good things about Canada, and really some of the most beautiful places to drive through is really like one of my favorite drives ever is going from like Thunder Bay west. It's just gorgeous, man.
It's super beautiful. Everything's so much less congested up there, even in major metropolitan cities.
Yeah.
The closest you get to like an American city vibe is like Vancouver, but every other major city, it's like I said, so much less congested. Everything's nice and spaced out, so you can really kind of appreciate the surroundings a little bit more. Yeah, I love that place.
Vancouver's fucking crazy. I'm sure you guys played the Rickshaw.
Yeah.
Man, that was the first time that I had seen like places to put your needles.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. And what's really interesting about Vancouver, and it's one of those things like, do I agree with this or not? Because it in theory it sounds good, and then in practice it's kind of like, I don't know. But they basically, if you are an addict of those kinds of substances, they basically put you in a section of the city, and they're just like, if you don't leave there, we won't fuck with you.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of West Coast cities do that, whether it's in Canada or America.
Yeah.
I know that my little pocket of San Diego up in North County in Escondido has a similar thing, despite having way lower numbers than places like LA or Oakland or San Francisco or Portland or Seattle, where that shit's just fucking out of control. But I feel like it works when it can be well contained, those kind of public initiatives. And I think that it's designed for the greater good, but like the road to hell is paved with good intentions kind of thing. Like
Right.
it's a slippery slope that needs to be managed and regulated super well to actually work.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
I
agree
lived
with
in
the
the Bay.
centers. I agree with like, give if someone's addicted, give them a place to do it safely. I agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I lived in the Bay Area sort of for like 7 years in Santa Cruz. Um, and shit, I lived there longer than that. I think I was there for like 10 years now that
oh
I think
shit.
about it. But yeah, I was in the Bay Area for a while, and it's so much worse up there. The like
Oh
homelessness and
man.
the drug problems that are just so rampant up there. And
Yeah.
I feel like there's not enough of a balance between like the way the bipartisan elements of our country run in those kinds of areas, and so it just falls apart. It's unfortunate, but
Yeah.
hopefully as we progress throughout the years, we can figure out better ways to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a huge problem, and it's a big part of the industry I work in outside of music and the cannabis industry, and um, it I'm grateful to work in the industry because I've been able to see folks who have had so much trouble with opiates and all that stuff really overcome that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
I'm glad that Canada wised up, and even before we did. And I don't know, Canada had like this whole, yeah, it's legal sort of for a long time. Not so much as here, where here we had the different states, but like in Canada it wasn't legal, but then there were these, I don't know, every time I went to Canada, especially like in Vancouver, there's a building with like a weed plant on the door and a guy standing outside the door, and he's just like looking side to side, and he's when you show up, he's like, all right, you can come on in, and he like lets you in, and
Yeah.
you can buy your shit and then do your thing. And I definitely bought weed in one of those real sketchy, like quote unquote dispensaries with like folks who kind of looked like they were having a hard time in line with me. So I got an appreciation for it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I worked in the cannabis industry for a while
Oh
as
no way.
well. Yeah. I worked in a lab doing. I don't know how familiar you are with the production side of things,
Yeah.
but I was doing decarboxylation basically of just like,
Sweet.
so I would take like I'd go to like dispensaries across town with like a few grand and just kind of be like, hey, like here's some money if someone try, because the way that, for those of you who are watching that don't know, the way that most dispensaries get their products is that people kind of come in and are like, hey, here's what I have, would you be interested in buying this and putting it on your shelf? um, and it's usually vetted pretty thoroughly. uh, but some people come in with good ideas, good intentions, and don't really have the product to back it up.
Right.
And so I'd be like, hey, anytime someone comes in with just some absolute dog shit, like just buy it with this money and hold on to it, and I'll be back in a week. And so I would do that, pick up from a few different dispensaries, and then I just have a bunch of just garbage hash, pretty much.
Yeah.
Um, and I would decarboxylate it, which is basically taking it, turning it from just regular hash with THC in it to THCA, which is an activated product that you can then use in hash pens and sublingual sprays and capsules, for certain milligrams, edibles, all that kind of stuff, mixed with vegetable glycerin or vegetable shortening or whatever it might be. And that's basically what I did for a while, was just take crappy product and turn it into something usable.
Dude, that's fucking crazy. Like I don't know that there's something like that here now. Like
Yeah.
I don't have a guy coming into my dispensary like, "Hey, buy this shitty stuff and I'll be back.
Yeah.
Here's some money." Like
Yeah.
that's ballsy.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, the worst thing they're going to do is be like, bro, get the fuck out of here, which happened a few times, but
or like
it's the kind of thing where
give
it's
me
like
your money and get the fuck out of here.
yeah, most people are usually pretty cool with being like,
Yeah.
if I like give them a percentage off the top, of whatever it is, I'm like, here's $1,000, I'll let you keep 200, just buy $800 worth of this shit. Like,
Totally.
yeah, everybody's trying to make a few bucks at the end of the day. So
Yeah. Were you doing that like of your own accord, or did you work with like a production group?
it started off as my own accord, but then I started getting noticed by people, and was kind of presented with a choice of like, do this for us or just stop doing this. And I was like,
Oh,
I'll
fuck.
just do it for you guys. Cool. Like,
Oh,
works for
fuck.
me.
Nice. It's interesting how the markets state to state are so different too, because in Mass you have to be vertically integrated. So you
Yeah.
have to have your own production facilities. You have to have, and then that kind of like, I can't be somebody who grows in my house and try and go sell to dispensaries. I have to have a license. I have to get inspections by the state, and I say like inspections, like probably 4 or 5. It's a
Gnarly.
whole, yeah, it's super gnarly in Massachusetts. Particularly the regulations are like way strict, and yeah, and it just makes the wholesale market almost non-existent, because everything you're growing, you're selling. So then when you do have some extra product to sell to maybe some of the other dispensaries, the prices are fucking insane.
Yep.
So Massachusetts was very quick to like pass the laws when they kind of started going through their whole medical and then recreational thing, but they have been like very much dragging in their feet on the regulatory side.
Right. Well, in a perfect world, it'll be a perfect world in just a couple years.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. But
cheers to that.
could be worse. So you could still be. Well, I guess Florida has medical, but I don't know. I could be living in Florida.
Yeah.
So dude, so we were talking about it a little bit, but growing up and getting into guitar and into music, like I can't remember who showed me Yes. I just know that I heard this song Roundabout. Like that was the first song that I heard from Yes, and I was just like, this is super sick. What's happening? Everyone in the band is playing something different at the same time, but it's still so cohesive and it's still so sick. And I hadn't heard the song in a while, and me and my wife were just driving around listening to some classic rock, and I think it came up on a playlist or some shit like that, and I was just like, fuck, like this song, yes, it's so amazing, like fuck yeah. And then a few days later I saw you guys put out a cover of it. So it's so fucking sick. If you haven't heard the Allegiant cover of Yes's Roundabout, please go check it out. And how did you guys come up with that idea? And honestly, I don't know bands like and I'll say our level. Obviously, you guys are much bigger than my band. But how does a band in our realm go about covering a song like Yes or like Rush, like you guys did too? Like, what do you have to go through to do that?
So, I mean, we all listen to music outside of our genre, obviously.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone in this little slice of the industry, I feel, does. And so it was just kind of a matter of trying to like mix things up, do something a little bit different, and that's what got us going on the Rush covers. And the Rush covers were, they took a little bit of talking about, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, as does any kind of creative endeavor. I wanted to cover this song, Greg wanted to cover this song. We weren't even sure about Rush. We wanted to do different bands. Like it was a long discussion. And we kind of ended up settling on Subdivisions and Animate, and then staggering their releases to kind of accommodate how well known those songs are in their own right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it took a lot of practice, a lot of rehearsal, obviously. I mean, I have been singing not metal for most of my life, so it wasn't necessarily ground I hadn't covered as a musician. It wasn't really like
Right.
oh shit, like I need to learn how to sing to like do these songs. Like
Yeah.
it was kind of just switching gears to something else that I'm very familiar with. So
Right.
but it was just cool. I think the coolest part of it was just putting our own take on those songs. And based off of how well received the Rush songs were, Metal Blade had a talk about some creative direction stuff. Recommended we do another cover in that vein. I think they originally had wanted us to do like a Genesis song,
Yeah.
but I feel like Greg is a Phil Collins Genesis guy and I am a Peter Gabriel Genesis guy, so we just could not settle. Like
no, there's no way.
yeah, dude. I was like, I want to do Dancing with the Moonlit Night, and he was like, fuck no. Like so we talked about same kind of thing, just bouncing bands and ideas. And when we settled on Yes, there was still a discussion of like, because I'm into much older Yes, Greg is a little bit more into newer Yes.
Yeah.
He wanted to do like Machine Messiah. I wanted to do something off of Close to the Edge.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think what actually brought up the idea of Fragile was I was like, hey, let's do Heart of the Sunrise, because I fucking love that song. And it was like, yeah, it's a good song, but it's like 10 and a half minutes, and
Yeah,
like it's really long, and there's a lot of stuff, and like not that Roundabout is much shorter, but it is much more well known.
Yeah.
As far as Yes songs go. So we kind of just settled on that, and the rest is history. You know, it was super fun recording it, and super fun just being a part of that whole creative process. That was definitely a little bit more of a challenge for me vocally than Subdivisions was. Subdivisions, we kind of sculpted harmonies for it on the fly.
Yeah.
Because in Rush, Geddy Lee is like the only guy singing.
Yeah.
I think in that song, the only time Alex Lifeson approaches the mic is to go Subdivisions, and like that's it. Whereas you have Yes, where it's like the end of Roundabout is like a 7-part harmony with like chorus stuff. So
it sounds like 10 parts or something. I was like,
yeah, it's wild. It's a lot of voices. So learning all those different voicings and learning all those harmonies and executing them in the studio took a lot of time. It took me about 2 full 8-hour days in the studio just to get my vocals down. So it was definitely a creative challenge, but it was tons of fun.
Nice.
And I'm really happy with the way it came out. So
yeah, shout out to the back of Dave Otero's head for making that happen.
He's such a good producer, man. I've worked with a few people on different albums. Zach Oren is another one that I've worked with a lot in the past, living in the Bay Area and getting kind of my sea legs in the metal industry out there. And Zach's also a phenomenal engineer.
Oh yeah.
But working with Dave, it's like every engineer's different, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And working with Dave is like such a unique experience, as far as the way he, goes through his process and how hands-on he is with the way that he, kind of throws ideas your way, or how he'll help you restructure things. It's like, at this point, Allegaeon kind of like purposely goes into the studio like 90% done, so that we can just like get Dave to cover that extra 10% because he's so good at it. Like
that's so cool.
Yeah,
that's insightful as how important a producer can really be sometimes.
Yeah. Dave definitely knows his sound for this style of music and knows what he wants to achieve, and will make sure that you end up with that product, and it's always good. So love working with that guy. Can't wait to get back in the studio with him for the next Allegaeon record. Fuck
yeah, shout out Dave Otero. And there you go, we got some insider information. Big surprise, Allegaeon's recording with Dave again.
Yeah, surprise.
So in the downtime, are you guys working on some new stuff? Are there more covers in the works, or is it really like, you guys are working on the next record?
Kind of, sort of. I feel like Mikey and Greg are really hitting the books as far as, writing new stuff. The rest of us can't really start diving into our parts until they've delivered on their end.
Right.
So they've definitely written quite a few songs between them at this point. We had originally planned to do like a writing retreat kind of thing, like all fly out to the Denver area because we live all over the country.
Yep.
So flying out to like the Denver area, just isolating ourselves, ironically enough, isolating ourselves for a little while, like a week or so, and then just like really focusing on writing and developing parts, getting everybody's creative input on the songs.
Yeah.
But now that's definitely a delayed process with all the travel bans and how difficult it is to get around right now. So just kind of sitting on some ideas, and hopefully we'll be together sooner than later to kind of piece everything together. But I have my plate more than full with what I'm doing with the new Virulent Depravity album. So I'm kind of glad that Allegaeon is not full steam ahead on the writing process right now.
Yeah, fuck yeah. I didn't know you were doing that.
Yeah, new Virulent Depravity record. The working title is just VD2 right now.
Okay.
But
VD2.
it's some of the most insane music I've like ever heard in my life. Like Colin is such a mad scientist of the guitar, of just music in general, the way he constructs things and writes things. And Nick Padovani from Equipoise is also playing guitar on that record.
What?
And he's been helping a lot with like, kind of reining in Colin's mad scientist vibes, making them a little bit more digestible. But there's tons of elements that I don't necessarily want to ruin the surprise, but tons of musical elements on this new record that haven't really been incorporated into Tech Death before. Lots of dynamics floating around, so I'm super excited to get this one out there, and working on it with all those dynamics intact has definitely been a different kind of challenge that I've never come across before as a singer and a lyricist. So it's super fun, but very, very time consuming. Definitely taking up a lot. It's like I'll spend a whole day working on a song and be like super ready to show Colin, and then look at it the next day in context and be like, well, can't do that. So it's very different but very fun. So
yeah,
I'm stoked for it.
Dude, fuck yeah. I can't wait to hear that. That sounds like a super group if I've ever heard one. So that's gonna be fucking awesome.
Yeah, I'm stoked.
Do you guys anticipate a release this year on that?
Maybe.
Cool.
It's
yeah.
like it's still so up in the air with the creative process that it's like I would love to see it come out fourth quarter 2020, but with everything going on in the world and everything going on in everyone's personal lives, we'll see. Definitely still playing it by ear.
For sure. Nice. Awesome. Well, I will definitely keep my eyes peeled. So you said that you had grown up playing or singing things outside of metal. So how did you get into doing vocals, and what was like what was your progression from getting started, and how you kind of broke into the metal game?
Totally. So I am the youngest of five, and
wow.
yeah, and my only brother, who is my oldest sibling, and my oldest sister, really, he was 15 when I was born and she was 12. So they were like right at that age where like having a new little brother was like a science experiment. So I, for my brother, I was his like go-to, like, hey, help me harmonize with this song kind of thing.
Oh, cool.
When he was like 18, 19. So I was still only like 3 or 4. And then, my sister was much more into like, hey, help me do this like dance choreography to this like 90s R&B song. So I learned a lot about that kind of stuff. I'm a terrible dancer, by the way. I can't. We learned very early on that that's not my forte.
You're gonna have to show me these R&B moves when I see you, man. I don't know if I believe you.
But yeah, so I got a lot of exposure to both like kind of classic rock as well as like 90s alt rock, and R&B from the 90s growing up from a very young age, all of which is chock full of like really incredible singing. So it started off as just like me, mimicking other artists and singing with my brother and singing with my sister and doing all that kind of stuff. And as I got older, I started doing a little bit more formal vocal education with like choirs, got into like, jazz singing in high school. But before that, towards the end of middle school, I started getting into more, heavy music. Like when I was like 12-ish, bands like Metallica and System of a Down and Tool that were, because I was 12 in the year 2000. So it was like very heyday for all those bands.
Yeah.
And started getting into that and exercising my voice in that direction. And within a year or so of listening to that kind of stuff, I got way into like Cradle of Filth and Opeth and Dimmu Borgir and wanted to learn how to do vocals like that. And from there it just kind of snowballed into like all this death metal and grindcore and like really aggressive punk and all kinds of stuff that I started practicing in my spare time. And by the time I was like a freshman in high school, I had joined my first band and doing that style of vocals. As well as doing like the more formal stuff on the other hand in like a more formal setting. So I had like my hobby metal vocals, but then like my formal like jazz opera stuff that I was doing.
Wow.
So yeah, singing has just like always been a part of my life as far back as I can remember. And writing kind of came hand in hand with that as far as lyrics go. In middle school and high school, I started getting really into like the classics like Shakespeare and Poe and all those guys. that gave me a really, well-founded appreciation for the English language and how it can be used to convey certain ideas and images and emotions, and started getting into more novel-based type of reading. I can never write a novel. I don't have the attention span for it. But but I started getting into particularly the author Yukio Mishima when I was in like late high school, early college age, and such a phenomenal writer. Like that guy just has such an amazing way with words, and some pretty intense ideals that he, if you're unfamiliar with Mishima's backstory, he attempted to overthrow the Japanese government in a coup d'etat in the 70s, and when it failed, he basically like had a few other people. He's very like traditionalist, like non-westernization type of Japanese dude. And when his coup d'etat failed, because he basically like kidnapped a general and then like made a speech to a bunch of troops being like, go back to your old ways, like proud Japanese heritage and all this kind of shit. They like laughed him off the fucking podium. So he then went inside and committed seppuku.
Whoa.
Just fucking, that was it. So super intense dude.
Damn.
And it comes across in his writing, and his writing is absolutely phenomenal. He has this book called The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea, that's really, really good. And then another book that's more of like an autobiography called Sun and Steel that both influenced my writing style a lot. And then that kind of ties into metal, because metal can be very wordy. It's less focused on lyrical melodies and more of, the dynamics of words and how they can rest in your lyrics and all that kind of stuff. So
you're telling me you're saying words?
Yeah, right.
He's not saying anything.
He's just oofing and offing over there.
Bring back the brie. Come on.
Dude, just fucking. Sometimes I do that on stage just when I get bored. I'm just like, yeah, I could really work on these words, but I could also just same thing. It's totally fine.
It's got to be fun because like I can't do that, right? Like I can't just like I'm just gonna fuck off and not play notes. I'm just gonna. I guess maybe I could, but I think you guys got a little more wiggle room, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, I definitely can't do that vocally with a Legion, but with Continuum, I've been known to just kind of fucking brie over some parts here and there when I'm just fucking over it, because that music, it's so chaotic. So don't tell anybody. Oh wait, we're live on the internet. Oops.
And this is gonna live on YouTube and the other places you can listen to this forever. No, that's killer.
Myself.
So then when did and I will preface this again if you don't know Riley, among the bands that he's in Allegaeon. He was in a band called Son of Aurelius that I am a huge fan of. The Farthest Reaches very much influenced the sound of our first record and still does. And I still talk with Carrie all the time. Carrie's the man.
Carrie is the man.
Carrie, at the time when like the band was just starting and we were kind of just getting our footing as a signed band, and I was just like cold messaging people on the internet like, hey, help. Like what what do I do? Because I'm from Miami and we didn't have a whole lot of other bands doing what we wanted to do to look up to, and hey, what should we be doing and not be doing? Carrie was kind enough to like respond to my messages without knowing who I was and gave me some like sage advice at the time, which was just like, he's like, polite persistence is what I would recommend to you. So just like, you can be persistent in this game, just make sure you're polite and understanding and not expecting of anything, and you'll go far with that kind of mindset. And that's stuck with me all these years later.
Which is hilarious that he would say that, because I feel like that statement must have been born from the issues that Son of Aurelius was dealing with.
Really?
Because I actually didn't do the vocals for Farthest Reaches. That was another guy named Josh, and he was staunch, to say the least, when it came to like business and band stuff, and very much felt it was like his band and his project, and like was the point person for all the industry people that would talk to him, and he just did not understand how this game works and would like turn down all kinds of shit and like really ran the band into the ground. Like when I joined, I was like, it was my first touring band, so I had no idea. But in retrospect, I'm looking at it and I'm like, what a fucking dumpster fire! Like,
Oh no.
it was so bad. But it was a learning experience, you know what I mean? And it's funny that Carrie would be like, you know, polite persistence, like be accepting, don't expect anything, because that's like the exact opposite of how Josh ran that band. So, you know,
that makes a lot of sense now. He was like, just don't do the thing that we did.
yeah. The best way to give advice is by you know, learning from your mistakes. So
yeah, well, shout out to Carrie again for being an awesome dude. Guy. How far into the Son of Aurelius career did you end up in the band?
So pretty much immediately. I mean, Farthest Reaches came out in May of 2010, and I joined the band in October of the same year.
I was gonna say, because I saw you in like all the videos that I watched of you guys, you know, playing those songs. So I was like, is that not Riley? Like,
yeah, 100%. So what ended the way I joined the band is kind of a funny story. So I was originally just supposed to do merch on that tour. And a week before the tour started, Josh hit me up and was like, hey, like, I run this like seafood exporting thing with my dad out of like China and Hawaii. It's like a big thing. Like I have to go help him do business stuff. I'm not going to be able to make it for like the first week of the tour. Can you cover vocals? Like we really can't cancel this tour. Like we've already canceled a bunch of shit and turned a bunch of shit down. Like it would be devastating for us, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, man, like it's no problem. Like I'll learn the songs. I'm already a vocalist. It's, you know, nothing new to me.
Yeah.
So I learned the songs and went out there and did the vocals. And he was supposed to meet us in Texas. And day before he's supposed to meet us, he calls us and he's like, hey guys, like I'm still super tied up with this shit. Like I'll meet you in Florida. And then same thing in Florida. I'll meet you in New York, and then in New York, and then same thing in New York. I'll meet you in Denver, and then, you know, you can see the routing in your head, I'm sure. So it's like, so he's like, yeah, you know, I'll meet you in Denver, and then Denver comes along. We can't get a hold of him. No one can reach the dude, and our bass player, this dude Max Zigman, he's a very quiet kind of guy. So I hear him from the back seat just be like, "Oh, motherfucker," and I was like, "What? What's going on?" And I just see this cell phone like fly past me and land on the dash, and I pick it up, and it's just a picture on Facebook of Josh golfing at home.
Wow.
That was posted the same day, and Carrie hit him up and fucking tore him a new one, and it was a real messy breakup at the time. But they were just like, dude, at this point, like you've done more for this band than he has, so you're our new vocalist.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so it was pretty wild. I hate to like air dirty laundry and be like bad blood, but I fucking can't stand that guy, so I have no problem.
You gotta, hey, you know, shit gets real sometimes. You gotta do it, and you know, I'm sure he doesn't feel great about it now, or I hope he doesn't anyway. So
yeah, you know, he's gone through a lot of ups and downs since then, but he's still a piece of work.
Yeah.
So
so then. Son of Aurelius put out one more record after that one.
Yeah.
The name is leaving me. I can see the album cover.
Yeah. Under a Western Sun.
God damn it. It was right there. That album was great. Obviously very different than the Farthest Reaches, but that was the last thing that you guys did together, right?
Yeah. That was the last thing we did together. That album still kind of strikes a nerve for me, because it was, like I said, Son of Aurelius was like my first band in like the professional music world.
Yeah.
And I came in kind of at the tail end of things being good. So between my first tour and releasing Under Western Sun, like we lost our label, we lost management, like we were completely independent by the time we released that record.
Wow.
And so it was like very discouraging from an industry side of things. And then when that album came out, it was very poorly received, because everybody wanted a tech death record. You know what I mean?
Right.
And, you know, now that it's aged a little bit, I feel like a lot of people have gone back to it and been like, you know, face value, it's a really good record. It's like really good progressive metal. But people still definitely wanted that tech record. And I was still very inexperienced and super soft, and I hadn't really realized that like once you put something out there, like it's not yours anymore. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Oh, yeah.
you should be working on the next creative thing you're doing and not focusing on what people think of this thing you already released.
Yeah.
So it was just super devastating for me. I actually like quit metal like for a while after that record came out,
Oh,
a
fuck.
good couple years, because I was just like so bummed with how poorly it was received. Uh,
That's bullshit, man. That's a great fucking record. I mean, even me as like a huge fan of Reaches, I really enjoyed that record, and I think maybe Carrie and I had caught up prior or something like that, and I think maybe he gave me a heads up, so maybe I was
yeah.
less surprised.
a little bit
But
less shell shocked when it
yeah,
dropped.
but I mean, I get it too. I guess that people wanted another Tech Death album, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I enjoy, and maybe it's because I'm in a band and whatever, but I enjoy hearing the progression. I enjoy hearing a band do something different. I enjoy, not the same shit record after record after record. Like
Yeah.
you put it out, I'm good. Like let's see, even if you want to keep some of the same stuff and build on top of that, great too. But like, don't put out the same record.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like knowing what I know now about, being a professional musician and being in the industry, like looking back on the way I handled a release being negatively received and being like, I'm never doing this again. It was like super immature, you know what I mean? Like super
Right.
not a good way to handle that kind of situation. But, it's like I was just saying, you got to learn from your mistakes and onward and upward. So I was actually out of metal for a while. While I was working on Under Western Sun, I recorded an album with Continuum, and I did vocals on an Inanimate Existence record,
Yeah.
Never Ending Cycle of Atonement. So I released both of those records in kind of the interim between Farthest Reaches and Under Western Sun. So I was like still super gung ho on doing the metal thing, and then that dropped, and it just put a bad taste in my mouth about it, and I started working on other music stuff, which is, in my opinion, kind of a good thing. It helped me expand my focus and make myself a more rounded out singer. I was doing like live dance pop stuff with a group, and
Oh damn.
working on like independent hip hop projects and producing, and I learned a lot about engineering in that time that I wasn't doing metal. But when Allegiant hit me up, initially just to cover, fill in vocals on like a short, like 5 or 6 day run, getting back on stage like really hit me super hard, and I was like, man, like this is the shit I love. Like I can't, you can try to bury it down, but you can't you can't deny that shit forever. So once I got back into it, I was just like, well, this is my life now.
Can't take the man out of the band. You can take the band out of the man, but no. But so that's how you. I was going to ask. That's how you kind of came about into joining Allegion. They needed some fill-in work, and you guys fell in lovesies.
Yeah. So Under Western Sun is Greg's favorite record of all time by his own admission.
I saw him when that came out. I saw him like losing his mind on it. Like I saw it like often. So I was like, oh, sick. I'm really glad Greg's like this, because I am seeing some of the backlash. So.
Yeah, for sure. So he was super stoked on it, and when they needed someone to fill in, because their last vocalist was going through some personal stuff, he was like, well, you're literally my favorite vocalist, and I know you're not doing anything right now, so do you want to come do this tour? And I was pretty reluctant about it. I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I'm still a little gun shy after all that shit. So, we'll see how it goes. And like I said, once I got back into it, I was like, oh man. And just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in, like Godfather 3 and this shit.
Yeah. Well, it's been like 5 years now, right?
Yeah. I joined Allegiant at the end of 2015 and have since put out 2 records with them, as well as another Continuum record, and now working on this Virulent Depravity album, and definitely glad that I got back into the metal scene. I think the time away was necessary, but I'm really glad that I'm back in it and in it to win it.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. I will also say that we are also glad. So happy you came back, and really looking forward to what's next with all these great albums you have going on. Also, just want to give a shout out to Ezra, who is the previous vocalist of Allegion, and we did one of my favorite tours ever, which was Wretched, Allegiant, and Rivers of Nile and us. And
Nice.
Ezra was on that tour, and we stayed at his house, and his cat like had beheaded a bunch of rabbits and stuff, and like Ezra's just an awesome fucking guy. So
Ezra is a super awesome guy. I fucking love that guy. I'm very stoked to be talking with him later on this week for an Allegiant live stream that we're doing. Yeah, he's a great dude.
Yeah, when is that, and where can people check that out? And
that is Friday. Friday evening, we're doing a little celebrating the 8-year anniversary of the Allegiant record Form Shifter, and we are getting most of our current lineup as well as the entire 2012 lineup of Allegiant, which is Ezra, Ryan Gleason, who played guitar, Corey Archuleta, who played bass, and JP Andrade, who played drums for that record. So it's going to be a big old live stream listening party that we're going to be hosting on Facebook Live, as well as through our brand new Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Allegiant.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun. But yeah, I love Ezra, man. He's a great guy. I was super fortunate to share the stage with him not so long ago when we played in Greeley during a live streamed performance that we did out there. Pulled him up on stage for 1.618 and got to I don't know, dude, that guy, like, he has such a strong personality. Like, his stage presence goes for miles.
Oh,
like,
so does. I can still see him in my head, like his...
Yeah, right? Like, it was so funny because I'll never forget that I was like fucking up my parts during that part when he was on stage with us, because I was just like absorbed in watching him. I was just like, God, this guy's so fucking good at just like working the crowd and like being a stage, like that. His stage presence is just so incredible. So yeah, it's I definitely learned a lot from Ezra, and filling his shoes was no easy task, and still isn't, honestly. Like it's kind of like two different bands at this point. It's like, you know, the Ezra era and the Riley era, and they both offer different things, but I don't think I'll ever be able to adequately capture the same kind of thing that he presented and contributed to that band. So it's an honor for me in a way to kind of live up to that legacy. So
that's so awesome. And
big shouts to Ezra.
Yeah, big shouts to Ezra. Don't sell yourself short, but big shouts to Ezra. And yeah, just before we move on the Ezra thing, I just we during that tour, we pretty much had every single intro to a song, like what he would say, memorized, and we would just like shout it at each other on the tour, like Tartessos, the hidden Xenochrist. Like, I'm like, all this super fun. So
I love it.
Yeah, I hope I get to see him again. So cool, man. So do you remember your first metal show and what that experience was like for you?
Oh yeah. So my very first metal show was in my freshman year of high school. I was 14 years old, and I was playing with my black metal band called Roots of Evil. Right?
Edgy, bro.
Yeah, right. So playing with Roots of Evil, and we were playing in a fully fluorescent lit, actively being used by the public ice rink in Escondido, California. So it was like it was like people just like hanging out, doing like going ice skating, like hanging like you know, doing their little circles on like the half of the ice rink, and then on the other half was like these 14-year-olds in leather and corpse paint, like
summoning Satan,
playing
just like
super shitty black metal under full fluorescent lighting. So it was a magical experience that I will never forget. At the time, I thought that we were like fucking Metallica. Like, I was just like, we are the biggest band in the world. This is so fucking sick, amazing. And now I look back on it and I'm like, oh my God, that is so funny.
Did you guys do the paint and everything?
Oh yeah, dude. 100%. 100%. Yeah. Full corpse paint, like weird leather jackets, like just it was a mess, but it needed to happen.
Hey, if it got to where you are, I know you just gotta make sure you bring that. Let me see where the camera is. You gotta do these
those cult vibes.
Oh yeah.
Ball grippers while we're out
The
there.
ball grippers.
Yeah.
What did Malcolm from In Fury call it? He called it like the imaginary grapefruit hands.
Yeah, imagine grapefruits. Grapefruits for sale. Cult as fuck.
So do you have? And I mean, obviously, based on the history, I'm sure we can kind of gather some general tips. But do you have tips for aspiring vocalists in metal and maybe for touring vocalists as well? I think there's often a disconnect in like, hey, you can do a thing, and then hey, you can do a tour and do a thing. You have any tips for those folks?
So I teach vocals, and one of the things that I tell all of my students is that like you can't use handicaps. Most importantly, like everyone who is like, yeah, just chug a bunch of milk or some fucking water with honey in it before you go on stage, like you are doing yourself a greater disservice than you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
Just learn how to use your voice, and learn how to use your voice in such a way that you're not damaging it.
Yeah.
Lasting power on tour is the most important thing. Like you need to be able to scream every night. I know in my case, I usually like run our merch and then go do vocals, and on headlining tours I am talking to people all day long, wearing the shit out of my voice and then going on stage and screaming for an hour. So it's like you really need to know how to take care of your voice, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. Proper, adequate vocal rest is super important. When I'm not doing merch and I'm not on stage, I am trying to be as silent as I can. There are post-performance remedies that you can use. The whole like lemon honey water thing, like that is a valid, treatment for your voice, but post-performance.
Right.
Take care of your voice, treat it like an instrument. You know what I mean? Like, are you gonna play a fucking month's worth of shows without changing the strings on your guitar? Like, fuck, no, you're not.
Yeah.
So it's, you need to treat your voice like an instrument, because it's an instrument.
Yeah.
And it needs just as much loving as any other instrument. People are out there changing their guitar strings and changing their drum heads, and if you're, just fucking chugging whiskey every night and smoking cigarettes and shit, like you are not taking care of your instrument.
Yeah.
So that's probably my best piece of advice, is just, treat your voice with the respect it deserves as an instrument, despite it not feeling like an instrument all the time.
Valid advice. So are you also giving lessons during this downtime, and should folks reach out to you?
Yeah, totally. Hit me up on Facebook or Instagram or any social media, and I can probably work you into my schedule if you are interested in learning. I'm actually in the process of trying to launch an online music school with my good buddy
cool.
Casey Howard, who played drums for Decrepit Birth and currently plays in Odious Mortem.
Nice.
Fantastic musician all around. That guy is one of those just freaks of nature who picks up an instrument and 3 months later is like better than anyone you've ever heard play it.
Oh god.
Yeah, he's so good.
Fucking hate these guys.
Yeah,
man.
working on trying to generate like a hub where people can not have to reach out directly to the teacher, but be able to kind of go to a place and connect with other teachers, as well as teachers connecting with students. So that'll be coming down the pike here, hopefully in the next couple months. But until then, you can just reach out to me directly if you are interested in some vocal coaching.
Killer. Yeah, I will definitely keep an eye out for that, and you just let me know, and we'll push the hell out of it. So.
Oh yeah, man. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have, since you're joining of Allegaeon, or maybe even prior, do you have a favorite tour you've done, and maybe like any standout tour moments? I know, again, from touring with the Allegaeon guys, and the tour we did was Mikey's first tour, which was fun.
Nice.
But there's always the antics and the changing or connecting the brake pedal and the horn kind of thing that goes on in Allegaeon. So wondering if you've got a favorite tour and any kind of stick out moments for you.
I feel like, the tour I feel like I remember most is my first tour, just because it was still so magical, you know what I mean? And it's crazy because at the time, the lineup, it was like 20 people going to these shows, you know what I mean? It was not a very successful tour, but if you took that same lineup today and put it out on the road, it would be like sold out across America. So it was a Cattle Decapitation headlining with direct support from Devourment, and then Knights of the Abyss, Burning the Masses, and Son of Aurelius.
Dude, Knights of the
Yeah,
Abyss and
right.
Burning the Masses, like those are so Knights of the Abyss are our like very good homies. Those guys are from Arizona, and we still talk with those guys all the time. And fucking
Dads,
Burning the
fucking
Masses,
dads.
dude. Yeah, dads. Oh man, god damn it. Rest in peace, Griffin.
Rest in peace, Griffin.
And then Burning the Masses, I haven't heard that name in so long, and that was Cameron was the vocalist of that band. Am I off on that?
So you are correct. I think was the vocalist's name was Cameron, but however, he was not on that tour.
Okay.
God, what was that dude's name? This was in 2010, and I
Yeah.
have not seen the only person from Burning that I still am like friends with on social media. I mean, yeah, is Artie Ostawari, and then and Chris Valenzuela, but neither of those guys do metal anymore. Chris is like a platinum. He recorded or engineered or did something with a like a Latin rock thing that went platinum. He's a platinum artist now.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so crazy. And then Artie is like a personal trainer and like super into fitness, and he still does
Okay.
music for sure, but it's not like Burning the Masses anymore.
Yeah. Was Chasen
But
drumming at the time? Was he on that tour?
Chasen was drumming at the time,
Oh, man.
and Chasen is the man. That guy
That
is so
fucking
good.
man.
I actually just ran into him at NAMM for the first time since that tour earlier this year.
Oh shit.
And it was like, holy shit, fucking Chasen! Like it was so
Dude.
sick seeing him again. And you know, I've been watching him and how he's progressed through the industry over the years, and he's doing great things. I'm super stoked for that guy.
Yeah, what's he
So
doing now? He kind of has got like I talk to him every once in a while. Last time we caught up was like a couple of years ago. We were gonna start working on some stuff together, like post Abiotic. That he had
right.
some stuff that he was working on, and then I haven't talked to him in so long, and god damn it, I fucking
Well,
love that dude.
I think he was doing Equipoise, I want to say.
Really?
Yeah, I think he was doing Equipoise. I feel like I know he was doing something with Nick. So you know, I'm gonna look this up right now. What is he doing?
I'm gonna be that guy.
I
Riley,
mean, he
Riley, bring
did,
that up. Look that up for us, Riley. Come on.
yeah. Right, I mean, he did the Faceless, obviously, and he
Yeah,
did Hate
yeah.
Eternal,
Did
and
Whitechapel.
and he did Whitechapel, and
He did
uh,
he did the comeback of it was UK Tech Fest with god damn it with Al Mumin's band. What is that band called?
yeah, he's
Heart Machine.
Heart Machine. Yeah, yeah. He's currently the drummer for Equipoise, according to Metal Archives. So,
Well,
which is awesome because
sick.
I love Nick. Nick is like the homie of all homies, and
Oh yeah.
obviously Stevie from Inferi, and Michael Alvarez from Alter Beast and Flub, who has been
Yeah.
filling in for Stevie live with them. Yeah, super sick stuff, man. Yeah, dude, chasing. I'm like looking at all the shit he's done. He did Abigail Williams. Totally
Yep.
forgot about that.
Oh yeah.
He did Oceano. Forgot all about that as well. He did Fallujah live drums for a while, and Full Darkness.
And Full
Fucking
Darkness.
Aegeon, like dude's been around, man, with like a bunch of sick bands. So
He did In Full Darkness, my first full US tour. He was drumming for In Full Darkness.
nice,
It was
nice.
super sick. And then before that, so the tour that he did before that one that he did with us, he did a tour was Fallujah and In Full Darkness, and he was drumming for both bands.
Wow. Wow.
Dude's a beast. But anywho, so yeah. So you said favorite tour was that first tour you did? Any like
See,
standout moments?
oh, definitely. I mean, we got escorted out of the venue by cops in South Carolina at Ground Zero.
You guys?
Yeah. Well, no, the whole tour package. So
Oh jeez.
yeah. So what happened was like literally 6 people showed up to that show.
Yeah.
And the promoter was like, "Bro, I cannot pay you guys. Like, 6 people showed up. Like, what do you
Right.
want from me?"
Right.
And and the tour manager, who shall remain nameless. I feel like I just told this story on another podcast, but here
Yeah.
it goes again. So the tour manager, who shall remain nameless, was like, "Well, that fucking PA speaker looks pretty good. I wonder what that'll sell for. That'll probably cover our expenses." And the dude got super spooked that we were gonna like jack all his shit and called
Whoa.
the cops. And they were basically just like, "If you are not venue staff, get the fuck out of here before we start making arrests." And that was definitely an experience for like my first tour ever. I was like, "Man, touring is fucking wild, bro." Like,
You gotta pull up on the promoter, son. You don't even know.
yeah, right. I was like, "Oh, shit." But there were a couple of really standout moments on that tour. Besides, there were good memories as well.
Yeah.
The bass player for Devourment at the time was this guy named Chris, who went by Captain Piss, and we were staying in Texas at Eric Park's house, who was drumming for them at the time, who plays in Rot of Obsidian now,
Yeah.
and we were staying at Eric's house, and someone was like, "Oh, you guys want to see an episode of Cheaters that Captain Piss was on?" And we were like, "What?" So seeing the dude from Devourment do a super staged, horribly acted segment on fucking Cheaters was a highlight of that tour for sure.
Was he the cheater or the cheatee or?
No, he was the cheatie. He was the cheatie, and
man.
the inevitable like parking lot breakdown where he like catches them, and it's the super shaky camera like following the dude through the parking lot as he's like, "I can't believe you did this to me."
Yeah.
So he went like the extra mile and full on took the knee. He was like, "I can't believe you, Sherry," or whatever the fuck her name was. He was just like, "I can't believe you. This I just like full blown." And it's so I've looked for that episode of Cheaters up and down, high and low on the internet, and I cannot fucking find it anywhere. I feel like I'd have to like watch the whole series and be like, "There he is." But it exists. Devourment's old bass player on an episode of Cheaters. I also learned that show is 100% staged. That's when I learned that.
Oh man, just taking away all the smoke, all the
first
fucking
Santa Claus, then the Tooth Fairy, now Cheaters. What do I even have anymore?
Yeah, you gonna tell me water's not wet or something? What else is you taking from me? Awesome, dude. So we will leave this at the Big Shred podcast playlist. So what have you been jamming recently, and what should we be listening to?
So as I mentioned, I kind of have a pretty colorful palette from my growing up history. Lots of metal and rock, and lots of like hip hop and alt pop and stuff like that. New Ulcerate record, amazing. Stare Into Death and Be Still, so fucking sick. Like everybody's saying album of the year, even though it came out in April. And I'm kind of inclined to agree. It's really good. It's really, really good. I've been listening to a lot of Moses Sumney, who released an album earlier this year called Gray, spelled Grae Part 1. Very like neo soul hip hop kind of stuff.
Cool.
Dude is an unreal singer. Like his range and his timbre and his control, as well as his ability to like play other instruments while he's doing all this stuff. It's insane. He's such a good musician. The new Aransi Pazuzu record, psychedelic black metal from Finland, I want to say, called Mester and Kinsey, just came out recently. I've been listening to that a lot. New Black Dahlia, their album Verminous, which is fucking just banger after banger.
So good, dude.
My absolute favorite electronic indie artist, Baths, released a new single called Michaela Corridor recently that I have been loving. It has a hilarious video that's kind of all about just like breaking out of expectations and being yourself, just like following your own path, which is super inspiring, I feel, amidst, to any creative person. It's like we so often think about, whether this person's going to like it or this group of people's going to like it or this kind of thing. But it's like you get the best end product when you just do what makes you happy as a musician. So seeing that was really cool and very inspiring. I've been listening to that a lot. Post Animal, who is kind of like a prog rock band, released a new record earlier this year called Forward Motion Goddessy.
Okay.
Which is fucking amazing. Super, super interesting record to listen to. And that also kind of ties into the last band on this list, which is a band called Luo, who I've been listening to for better part of a decade.
Yeah.
And they do very intermittent releases. They're like a math rock thing based out of the UK. But their newest song, or their newest album called Unspoken, particularly the song Problem Ball, super, super good shit. Like, next level of musicianship for sure. They've always kind of pushed the envelope with what they do in their genre. So seeing them finally release a whole album of this has been such a treat for me after like waiting 10 years single after single to get a whole chunk of music from them.
Oh
So
man.
very excited to be diving into that.
Fuck yeah. Well, yeah, a bunch of bands and artists that I am 100% not familiar with. So I look forward to compiling that list and doing some digging. Fuck yeah, dude.
Hell yeah, man.
All right, Riley, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. There is some stuff I didn't get to touch on, so hopefully we also get around to as well.
Yeah.
I hope post Corona that we can play some shows together with, the amazing lineup that you guys have now in the Legion, and with maybe one of your other sick projects that you have going on. So also, per usual, before we sign off, where again can people follow you, your projects, and what anything you want to plug?
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, Allegion, obviously my number one, my baby, all over social media, either under Allegion. I think Allegion on most platforms and Allegion official on Instagram. We just started a new Twitch channel where you can follow us, just twitch.tv/Allegion as well. My personal page is Riley_McShane on Instagram, All Hail Riley on Twitter, and Riley McShane on Facebook. You can find Continuum and Virulent Depravity on all social media platforms as well, particularly Instagram and Facebook is where we kind of live. And then my little kind of low-key, under-the-radar lo-fi hip-hop project that I have been working on called Modern Retro, modern spelled with a 0, which you can find on SoundCloud and Instagram. And that's pretty much it. That's all I'm really working on right now.
Oh, that's all. That's all I'm really working on. Putting us all to shame here, but all right. Well, thank you again so much for coming on, man, and wishing you all the best. Hope you and the guys stay safe, and can't wait again to see what you got in store. So we'll talk soon, man.
Hell yeah, man! It was a pleasure being on here. Thanks so much for having me.
Appreciate it. Thanks. All right. Well, we're gonna fix this because Skype sucks. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us on episode 12 of the Big Shred podcast. Again, if you missed it, if you came in halfway, this is going to be up on YouTube. So check out the YouTube channel. I'll bring up the image here again. The Big Shred podcast on YouTube. Check us out on Twitter, on Instagram. Again, this is on Twitch as well, where it lives for a little while and then it gets deleted and goes into the abyss or wherever it goes after Twitch. And obviously we're on Facebook, so it streams on my personal Facebook page. You can like us on Facebook as well, and once the following is a little more robust on there, I'll start moving these streams over there. Saturday actually. So Saturday we will have one more stream for the week at 7 p.m. Eastern. Again, that will feature Dave Davidson of Revocation, which I'm super excited to have on. He's definitely a guitar idol of mine. And Dan Sugarman as well, who's got a killer solo album coming out on the 15th. And he may or may not be playing some songs from that record during the stream. So come hang out. Again, hang out in the chat, ask some questions. And I've been John Matos, and I want to thank you guys again for spending your Wednesday evening with us. So I will talk to you all soon. Take care.